Find the limit by using the factoring method. Every time they ask you to find the limit, there are three methods to follow. The first one is called the substitution method. The second one is called the factoring method. And the final one is called the rationalizing method. It's better to use in this order every time you try to find the limits. So let's say that you are given a limit of as x approaches 3 for this limit. How will you solve it? So the first thing you need to do is to use the substitution method. For the substitution method, it's the same thing as plug-in method. So you use the 3 and then plug it in every variable that you see from the given. So now that we are using the substitution method, which is the first method, so you take 3, plug it into every x. So 3 to the second power becomes 9. So 2 times 9 minus 11 times 3, because you plug in every variable that you see, plus 15. 3 times 9 minus 24 minus 3. When you solve this expression out, you will get an indeterminate, because the numerator will be 0 and the denominator will be 0. Every time you come across this result for the calculation, it's called indeterminate. So that means you have to use the second method, which is called the factoring method. If it's a constant, if you solve this problem and it comes out to be an answer, a constant answer, that means you stop there. But since this problem, when you use the substitution method, it comes out to be 0 divided by 0. That means you have to use the second method, which is called the factoring method. So for this particular given limit problem, you factor it. On the numerator, when you factor 2x raised to the second power minus 11x plus 15, you will get 2x minus 5 times x minus 3, because negative 5 times x is negative 5x, and 2x times 3 times negative 3 will be negative 6, negative 6x. So negative 5x minus negative 6x is equals to negative 11x. This problem is the factoring method. So once you factor the numerator, you do the same thing to the denominator. You factor it out. So for the denominator, the factoring becomes 3x plus 1 times x minus 3. Once you factor the numerator and the denominator, you notice that this two expression right here can be cancelled out. So x minus 3 cancel with the x minus 3 on the denominator. So you are left with 2x minus 5 divided by 3x plus 1. Once you have this simplified expression, you plug it in. You try to find the limits as it approaches 3. So 2 times 3 will be 6 minus 5 divided by 3 times 3 will be 9 plus 1. And solve it out, the answer will be 1 divided by 10. So the limits for this particular problem is 1 divided by 10, which is a constant. Once you reach a constant answer, that means you are done with these limits. You don't need to go to the third method of rationalizing the denominator. You don't need to use this method called rationalizing method, because you already reached the constant answer.